Bro, this shit is so wild. I remember hearing about this shit.
Hospital in Kigali in 1994.
I don't remember where, bro, but I remember like seeing a little fucking video on it or whatever. But it was like when it started, it was
and a handful
wicked.
of foreign journalists. Further up the road, they can see men armed with machetes in front of them. They let them pass. A moment later, they reach the hospital. As they approach, people start running out towards them with their hands raised. They explain to the soldiers that the men with machetes have surrounded them and that some of them have been murdered. The people hiding in the hospital are Tutsis, an ethnic minority in Rwanda. The people outside are Hutus, the ethnic majority. For decades, the Tutsis have been persecuted in Rwanda. And when the Hutu president was killed a few days ago, Hutu extremists put the blame on the Tutsis.
The massacre sparked by the death of Rwanda's president, Juvenal Habyarimana, a Hutu in a suspicious plane crash.
Now, the president's successor, Jean Kambanda, wants to purge Kigali of Tutsis. And he's already begun.
Sickening.
The Tutsis here, though, have been saved. They've been hiding here for 3 days, and now, finally, it's over. But the soldiers aren't here to help any Rwandans. Instead, they walk past the crowd and bring out the Westerners also hiding at the hospital. And then they leave.
Oh, nah.
As the soldiers and journalists reach their trucks, they hear gunfire from behind them. The Hutus from outside have started killing the people at the hospital. The Rwandan Genocide has begun. For the past few days, Hutu extremists have been searching homes, workplaces, and schools in Kigali for Tutsis to execute, for no other reason than them being Tutsi. Already, more than 20,000 Rwandans have been killed. And now, the extremist Hutu leaders have started the next phase of their plan to spread the killing across all of Rwanda. Through radio broadcasts and local newspapers, they tell Hutus that the Tutsis are foreign invaders who want to turn them into slaves. Their propaganda reminds them that the Tutsis had once ruled them for centuries and had viewed Hutus as an inferior people.
Avis à tous les individus qui nous écoutent, oui, à tous les individus qui nous écoutent, le Rwanda appartient à ceux qui le défendent vraiment. Et vous, les individus, vous n'êtes pas des Rwandais.
The propaganda works. Hutu civilians from villages across Rwanda start joining local militias by the thousands. Afraid of being seen as protecting Tutsis, families even begin pointing out their neighbors to the killers. The punishment for sheltering Tutsis, men, women, or children, is death. Some Hutu extremists have even started referring to Tutsi survivors as those not yet finished off. In northern Rwanda, Tutsi rebels have started to push back, but progress is slow. As they move down, they find evidence of massacres of entire families in village after village. In the first 2 weeks of the genocide, more than 100,000 Rwandans are killed.
Jesus Christ.
By the end of the first month, that number is closer to 300,000. But despite getting daily reports on the thousands of massacres happening across the country each day, the UN Security Council has decided to implement a non-intervention policy.
We're going to go now to Mogadishu, Somalia, where there is a news story unfolding of a very different kind, a U.S. soldier apparently taken prisoner or hostage.
6 months ago, during a mission in Somalia, 18 American soldiers were on patrol in Mogadishu when they were killed by Somalian rebels. Pictures of their bodies being dragged through the streets ran for days on American TV. Another disaster in Africa could make it seem like President Clinton's out of his depth on his foreign policy. And so, the US, along with the rest of the UN Security Council, votes to withdraw 90% of its peacekeeping force in Rwanda. The few hundred peacekeepers still left will need to defend thousands of refugees hiding at the safe havens in Kigali. Some posts have a dozen soldiers, others have as little as 2. Most of them are unarmed. If the Hutus that now control most of Rwanda should decide to attack one of their shelters, the peacekeepers would be defenseless.
Comment on that, or a view as to whether or not what is happening could be genocide?
Well, as I think you know, the use of the term genocide has a very precise legal meaning, although it's not strictly a legal determination. There are other factors in there as well. When in looking at a situation to make a determination about that, before we begin to use that term, we have to know as much as possible about the facts of the situation.
The fuck are you talking about? Just answer the fucking question. You can see what's going on. They're telling them because what they are.
The US refuses to acknowledge
how much more definition you need of
Doing
genocide?
So would oblige them, along with all other UN members, to prevent it, according to the 1948 Genocide Convention. Instead, the US administration introduces Presidential Decision Directive 25, a policy that makes it even harder for the US to support UN missions that don't serve vital national interests.
The question of our security in this era still ultimately depends upon our decisions about where to bring our military power to bear. The end of the superpower standoff lifted the lid from a cauldron of long simmering hatreds. Now the entire global terrain is bloody with such conflicts, from Rwanda to Georgia. Whether we get involved in any of the world's ethnic conflicts, in the end must depend on the cumulative weight of the American interests at stake.
Dog, he said that shit like a fucking
is of no
student running for class president, bro. Get the fuck out of here.
In every sense, a conflict with no strategic value. Only after the Tutsi rebels take most of eastern Rwanda, and after weeks of daily reports from journalists, aid workers, and the Red Cross, does it become impossible for the UN Security Council to ignore the genocide. In the middle of May, it authorizes an expanded mission of 5,500 peacekeepers. But the decision comes without troops, equipment, or transport ready to deploy. And when a US advisor suggests jamming the extremist radio broadcasts, a lawyer in the Pentagon argues that it would violate the US constitutional principle of freedom of speech. The only real effort to stop the killing comes from inside Rwanda.
But isn't that hate speech? They're telling them to go kill people over the fucking radio.
Managed to keep thousands of Tutsi civilians alive with the few peacekeepers he has left. Among them is Captain Mbaye. On his own and with his jeep, he drives through the streets of Kigali to pick up Tutsi refugees still hiding in the city. Like many of his peacekeeping colleagues, Mbaye is unarmed. So to get past the many Hutu roadblocks in the city, he manages to talk his way through on charisma alone. In late May, on his way back from delivering messages from the Rwandan UN headquarters, Mbaye drives through a junction in central Kigali when a mortar shell lands beside the jeep. He's killed instantly. During the genocide, Mbaye and the rest of the UN peacekeepers are credited with saving an estimated 30,000 Rwandans. Around the middle of July, the Tutsi rebels managed to take Kigali. The Rwandan genocide is over. For the 100 days it lasted, more than 800,000 people were killed. Not once were the peacekeepers given the manpower, equipment, or political backing they needed to protect the people in Rwanda. In the following years, world leaders who stood by and watched as the genocide happened come to Rwanda. In March of 1998, 4 years after the genocide, President Clinton too flies into Kigali for the first time in his presidency. During his stay, in which he never leaves the airport, he meets with survivors and officials and addresses the Rwandan people.
And so I say to you, though the road is hard and uncertain, and there are many difficulties ahead, there are things we can do. And if we set about the business of doing them together, you can overcome the awful burden that you have endured. Thank you, and God bless you.
In his speech of more than 2,000 words, he acknowledges that the US failed to respond, but never offers an apology.
Dog.
And then
he kind of really was just like, you know,
in his memoir,
it'll get better, dog.
President Clinton
and like
walked away, intervening in the Rwandan genocide,
hey.
one of the greatest regrets of his presidency. Similar expressions of regret would appear in
he said he regretted not stepping in?
And biographies released by other world leaders in the years following the end of their careers.
I don't know, man. Listen. He could very well be regretting that. I don't know.
I'd like to ask you about your feelings, in your heart, in your soul, not in your brain, when you see the piles of corpses, you know, strewn throughout Rwanda, coming down the rivers and the lakes. How do you respond to that on an emotional level?
I will try not to be emotional. Let us recognize that it is a failure. It is a failure not only for the United Nations, but it is a failure for the international community. And all of us are responsible of this failure. It is a genocide which has been committed. Unfortunately, let us say with great humility, I failed. It is a scandal. I'm the first one to say it, and I'm ready to repeat it.
Nigerian news agencies.
You know, it's kind of hard to apologize to somebody if they're fucking dead. Like, how deep is this apology, big bro? It's seeming like, hey, man. Seeming like you kicked back, and now it's like, hey, man, listen. I kicked back. I shouldn't have. Still got what he needed out of it, though, huh? Let's watch the show. This motherfucker's, I'm not gonna lie, this motherfucker's, he's fire. I got a sub to him. He fire.